And open up Photoshop, find an image, and this is again just continuing our conversation of how to create a color accent if that's something that you want to do in your image. First of all, what's the way that I like to start all of my documents in case I mess up? What's the first thing I like to do when I open something in Photoshop?
Create a copy.
Yes, thank you. Create a copy of the background layer. And there's usually 2 or 3 ways to do anything in Photoshop, whether it's with a menu or a key command or whatever. So I like to just drag this layer down to the plus sign at the bottom of the layers panel next to the trash. So that's one way to create a copy. You can also go to the menu at the top, the little 3 lines, and choose duplicate layer, or of course just right click on the layer, duplicate layer. So however you do it, always make a copy of the background layer. And then you can always hide the background, just to save it for later. As a quick review, so for those of you that are not finished with your identifying composition project yet, if you're trying to add a brush stroke or like to highlight something, like to circle it in red on your pictures for the identifying composition, you can just add a new layer, just a blank layer by clicking that plus sign, and then get the brush tool, just the regular brush tool. And then we can make the brush size smaller or bigger using the bracket keys as that key command. Or you can go up here. A lot of tools work with the brush presets up here on the options bar. So as we click through different tools, you'll see the brush preset picker up here where you can adjust size and hardness and everything appears again and again. So find the brush tool and then make it like a medium size. You can change the foreground color down here. If you watch and see where my cursor's jumping, at the bottom of the toolbar, that's how you change the color that you're painting with. So I'm going to choose red, like if I'm working on that identifying composition assignment. And then I might make my brush a little smaller with the bracket key. And then if I want to change the hardness of the edge, I can turn it down here. And then maybe I like circle this area and say that's the emphasis, or that's what I want to be the emphasis. So that's how you would approach that assignment. So I'm just going to delete that layer. Now to make an image black and white, there's several ways. I think the easiest is to use your adjustment layers. If you don't have the adjustment panel open here, you can open any of these panels along the side that get closed by clicking on the window menu at the top and going down to adjustments. If you don't have that displayed, you can always change your workspace as well. So look up here, this is kind of an important point. So if you don't see any tools that you might expect, you can go to the workspace under window and change it back to photography. So that'll put it back on this like standard view. The other workspace that you might want to play with is the painting workspace, and notice how your panels change when you click on that. We still have our layers, but we don't have those adjustments right away anymore. So if I want to open them, I can just go window adjustments, and then I can add a black and white adjustment layer. So it looks like I drew it on the board like a white and a black rectangle. So when you click on that, then it will automatically make your layer or your document look black and white. Now the advantage of taking a picture with colors, as we've seen before, is that you can still adjust these color sliders and make, like, say, all the reds in your document really dark, or maybe make all the greens in your document a little brighter, so it can really push that contrast of your image. And then you have a lot of flexibility that way. So that's why I recommend taking pictures in color first. Guys, I appreciate you walking in quietly while I'm recording this for those that were absent. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is how to highlight just a particular part of my image. So here on this top layer, this is my background copy. I have everything in color. So last time we looked at how to add like a pop of red. Now, say you want to change that color. Maybe the thing in the hallway you found happened to be yellow and you want to make it blue, or it's red and you want to make it yellow, something like that. So there is a color replacement tool. You have to go back to the painting workspace to access it, but it's down here. It looks like a brush with a little rectangle or square next to it. So if you click on the color replacement brush, I'm just going to choose yellow since it's a very different color. And then watch what it does. So even if you don't think you're going to use this, you might want to look up here on the board. So now as I click and paint, you can see that it's replacing my purple with yellow, but the darks are staying dark and the lights are staying light. So it's just kind of replacing my color with a yellow flower instead of a purple flower, okay? So that's what the color replacement tool will do. That's if you wanted to replace a color accent with something different. Now you can also select this area and hide the rest. So this is using a mask. I love working with masks. I find them really helpful because they're what's called non-destructive. So there are certain edits that, like, for example, this color replacement tool, I've just altered this layer forever. Like, the only way to get this off would be to go edit, undo, and go back in time. But adding a mask is non-destructive, meaning I can go back and edit that mask anytime I want. So that's why I like working with masks as opposed to just selecting this flower and copying, pasting it onto its own layer. So I would still select the flower. So I'm going to use the quick selection tool. And then I'm just going to kind of paint my selection. So if I zoom in here, you can see what I'm doing. And the marching ants show what I have actively selected to alter or to copy and paste or to manipulate. Okay, so with my flower selected, and if I get too much, like down here in this negative space here, I can hold down the Option key, and then it toggles from add to selection to subtract from selection. Up here on the options bar, you can see what that's doing. So now I'm getting rid of part of that selection. Okay, so now a mask does just what you think a mask is. So like in Halloween masks, you put it on your face, it hides most of your face and just reveals your eyes. So this is just going to reveal the part that I have selected, and it's going to hide everything outside of my marching ants. So look up here so you can see this work. So just an example, what's underneath this layer, if I turn the whole layer off, is my black and white layer. So now if I add a mask to my background copy, or I might rename this yellow flower so I know for sure what's on that layer. If I click on the mask button, and if you remember nothing else from this demonstration, remember masks, because it takes a little bit of practice to get used to them, but they're really handy for the ability to go back and edit those. So if I hit the mask button, it's this little rectangle at the bottom of my layers panel with the circle in the middle. It's going to hide everything outside those marching ants. So now I just have that yellow flower. Everything's still there. All those pixels are protected. They're just hidden behind this mask. Now I can edit the mask, and this is kind of confusing, so make sure you look up here. I can edit the mask with a brush tool. So if I go and I find my brush again, making sure I have the mask selected, not the layer, but the mask itself down here in the layers panel, I can paint with white and reveal that layer again. So see what it's doing? It's revealing the layer with the color. Okay, so maybe I just want these flowers to be in color as well. But maybe I don't want this. So if I go back to painting with black instead of white, it will hide again. So I can go back and edit this mask as much as I want and refine it and customize it to have just the areas in color that I want without having to copy and paste and like lose those other pixels forever. So that's why I really like masks, because I find it is a lot easier to work with later. Okay, so there you go. That is another way of creating a color accent and replacing the color if you want to with the color replacement brush. So for the next way of changing color, I'm going to do more of a global edit, meaning I'm going to change the color of the entire image, or at least the tint of that image, give it more of like a blue tint or something like that. I'm going to work on this image here that I took for Valentine's Day. So if I want to start always by making a copy of my background layer, I'm going to add a color overlay. So I can do this in several ways. I could add just a blank layer. So it's called layer 1 because I just clicked that little plus sign at the bottom of my layers panel. And then to fill it with a color, so say I want to tint it blue, I choose blue from the color preset here. So I just change the foreground color is what that's called. Then I can go up to Edit Fill. The key command is Option Delete. And then I'm going to choose foreground color as my contents. Now it's going to look bad at first. So look up here. It's just going to fill the whole screen with blue. That's obviously not what I want. I just want it to be like tinted blue. So I could lower what's called the opacity. So this refers to the transparency of that layer. So if I want this layer to be more transparent than the other one, I just turn down the opacity and I can see my picture through it. So here's kind of before and after. I can also change what's called the blending mode. So over here next to where it says opacity, it says normal. These are special effects for how one layer can show through another. So this first category, and these are fun to experiment when you're trying to abstract a photo or you're putting two photos together, or you just take one layer, copy it, and then blend it with the layer beneath it. It adds some special effects. So this first category will darken where the two layers overlap, such as this one. And then I could even so add color burn, and then I could lower the opacity, and it just gives like a special effect. Or this next category lightens where they overlap, so it kind of looks more like a ghost. This third, this third category down adds contrast, and then this fourth category adds the opposite color. So you can kind of play around with your blending modes. I kind of like overlay most of the time. Soft light doesn't look bad. Okay, and then another way to do that, I'm just going to hide this for now, is to go down to where it says FX. These are the layer styles. It's right next to the mask button that we just learned. So layer styles, I'm going to write it on the board. It looks like an F with an X next to it, right next to the mask button. You have a lot of options there. I just wanted to highlight the color overlay. So here you can do kind of the same thing, but change the blending mode and then adjust the opacity. Oh, it's because my layer is invisible. Let's turn that back on. There we go. Okay, so now I can increase the opacity to make it more or less obvious. And then if I wanted to make this a black and white image first, I'm going to switch back to my photography workspace. So I go Window, Workspace, Photography, and that opens up my adjustment layers. I can add black and white. Now he's just blue. And then I can also add a warming filter. So I'm clicking on my blue layer, and then above it I'm going to add this warming filter. So it looks like a little camera with a filter on the end just next to the black and white button under the adjustments. So if I click on that, now I can increase the opacity of that warming filter and then maybe even drag it down in my layers. So now it kind of looks like a split toned image, and maybe I'll lighten this one a little bit. Okay. I can go back and edit those by double clicking on the layer in the layers panel. And then I can lower the opacity maybe if I want the blue to be less of an effect. So you can give a photograph an old-timey feel by just having that warm filter. Look how it looks like an antique photo. Okay, so that's changing color within your black and white photo. The last thing I wanted to show you was this knurl filter. And this is pretty cool. It's a new thing with Photoshop 2024. It's where you can blend two different images together, two or more, and you can take the style from one image and apply it to another and get some pretty unexpected results because it's AI doing the thinking for you. So, for example, I'm just going to start with this landscape here that I took a couple years ago. And just at first glance, I kind of like the depth, that's created. I don't really like the dead tree here, but the knurl filter kind of pulls from that and adds some interesting effects. So I'm going to leave it. So to get to this knurl filter, and filters are what we call destructive. So this means that it's going to make a permanent change to that layer that I'm on. So notice I'm on the background copy, so that when it makes that permanent change, I can always delete it and go back if I want to. Masking is non-destructive. So that's the difference. The mask, I can always delete that mask and the layer will be preserved. Okay, so filter, I'm going to add a destructive edit, but that's okay because it's pretty cool. And I can always go back if I want to. So filter, neural filters right down here. Make sure you don't click on the top one. That's just like the last saved edit. I don't want to do that. I want to add a new effect each time. So go down to neural filters. And then it has a lot of options. So it has some portrait effects. It can get rid of acne. It can make someone who's not smiling smile. So it can add a smile, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. It can take the makeup from one picture and apply it to another person. So there's all kinds of things that it can do. I'm going to look down here at the landscape mixer and turn that on because this is a landscape. So just at first glance, I can like make this photo look like it's more daytime. Again, this is AI doing it for me. So there it's like more of a daytime feel. I can make it look like I took it at night by just dragging these sliders. I like this one. I can add a sunset. So this is a daytime photo, but I make it look like it's taken at sunset. Maybe even add a little bit of nighttime. There we go. Ooh, that's a lot of bit of nighttime. Every time I drag these sliders, it does something different too. So it's hard to predict exactly what it's going to look like. You also have different seasons. You can make it look like it's snowy or whatever. So we have presets up here you can click through, but I'm going to go ahead and add a custom photo. So if you try using these neural filters, I challenge you to use your own photos instead of trying to find something online. So I'm going to go to custom, and I'm just going to upload a photo from my computer. And it's been a minute since I've done this. So I'm hoping it's still handy. Let's see. So select an image. It goes under my downloads. Here it is. Okay, so I have this image of this black and white globe. And then it's going to add the effect. Hopefully it makes it black and white. I'm going to take off some of that sunset effect. And there it looks more black and white. Now obviously the strength is turned up really high, so if I turn that down a little bit, some more of the green is going to show through. But now it has more of like a, I don't know, like I feel like it's divided differently, maybe according to the way these continents are divided or something. Again, it's going to be a different effect every time I add this photo. So I'm just going to click OK after I've played with it a little bit, and then maybe add my black and white on top of that. And now this image looks totally different than it did before. So this is before, this is after. So it's not just adding a black and white effect, it's completely altering the photo and the pixels according to the two images kind of blended together. So that can be something fun to experiment with. I might even take it, and it like I said, it will affect the layer that you're on. So I could even take this layer now and add a new effect. So I might add another filter, like another neural filter, by going filter, neural filter, and this time I'm going to play with landscape mixer again. Maybe I'm going to use an image that has color in it and see what it does. Oops, that's not what I meant to click on. Don't do that. Let's see, what other image do I have? Yeah, that's the one I wanted. Do you guys recognize this, where this is from one of our photo walks? Yes, the thing. The greenhouse on the magnetic board. Okay, so now if I upload this, it should give me something in color. We'll see what it does. Oh, it did not add color. That's interesting. But it distorted it even more, probably because the original was black and white. So it maybe made it look like you're looking through glass or something. Okay, then I can play around with some more of these sliders. Each time you change a slider, it's going to change your effect. Whoa. Okay. So that can be fun to play with. All right, guys, we have about 10 more minutes left, so maybe do one more thing in Photoshop, and then let me know what questions you have. If anyone wants to check out a camera, I have a couple back here.